So good morning. Am I audible? Yes. With or without the mic? With the mic. So let me begin by thanking the authorities of the Sri Aurobindo School of Integral Education and Gitika ji and Sharma ji, who has sent his greetings to me in absentia, and he had expressed a great desire to meet me also. And in the audience, I find Usha Di and Usha Opa, as we say in Orissa, and the daughter of an illustrious father and parents, Sardar Amar Singh, and who was one of the founders of what is known in Orissa as the Sri Aurobindo Sansad. And that was the parent organization for the whole chain of schools, integral schools, which started in the early 70s, and my parents were also part of it because we had left for Sri Aurobindo International Center of Education, where I was a student. Initially, my sister and I in 66, and I was there for about 11 years. And after graduating and getting the Best Student Award, I was given the opportunity, rather the task, to work in a community kitchen. So while some people must be looking for avenues for higher education, I went there and I prepared food. I washed the utensils and I brought rice from dining hall to the students' kitchen called Corner House. And it was not very good for me. I think it was a very good thing for my ego, because I believed that I was a brilliant student. I had received the Best Student Award, and in the hall was present mother's son, Andre, Monsieur Andre. So I think this dignity of labor that we talk about so much, and the leveling down of experience that I had, I think it was so good to me. So I'm very happy that Anil Sarwatji, who is also the head of the Baha'i Center here, and Manjuji, all of you and my friends, unnamed and unnamed, who are here. First of all, Sri Aurobindo stands not for the middle-aged, not for the old. Because by middle-aged, we have problems, marital problems, problems of children, unhappiness in job. So we turn to God-men and wise souls, and who teach us about the art of living. Nothing wrong about that. Yogi Vasudev or Sri Ravi Shankar or Paramahansa Yoganand, and there many others. But actually Sri Aurobindo is meant, Sri Aurobindo's yoga and spirituality is meant for the young. That is why I am here. And I see before me many students who should be actually in front, and they are sitting at the back. May I request all my good friends, young friends, to please move up. Some of you can also come and take your place here. Please occupy the seats. Don't sit at the back. Please come. And I told Gitika ji that next time, Gitika ji, they will manage. Please come. They'll manage. They're all very responsible kids. Come. Please come. Don't worry. We should not bother so much about protocol. I do believe Rekha, who said, Sare bandhan tod do. And that I have given this clarion call in the context of interdisciplinary research. So when we really talk about Sare Bandhan Tod Do, it means that our members also know how to behave themselves and how to really regulate themselves, the inner discipline that they have, rather than imposition of any discipline from above, the cornerstone of Mother's and Sri Aurobindo's teaching. Please come, there is still, and two of you, please come. My young children, please come and sit. Sit next to me. I want to tell you that the medium is the message, as Marshall McLuhan had said. And next time I'm going to come and I will address the dear students. I have addressed students here in I have addressed in 7 departments. And like our own guru, the mentor, and the main exponent of integral yoga and the founder of the Sri Aurobindo movement, Sri Aurobindo himself and the mother, Sri Aurobindo was a Renaissance personality. He was a polymath. He knew so many languages. And in England, he scored the highest in Greek and Latin, and he had mastered half a dozen European languages like French, Italian, and others also. So when he comes to India, because his father K.D. Ghosh desired that his children like Binoy Bhushan, Manmohan, and Aurobindo Ackroyd Ghosh, look at the middle name Ackroyd, the kind of anglicization that K.D. Ghosh, who was a product of Edinburgh University, a doctor, a physician, had, the destiny that he had for them. He comes back and he discovers the wisdom of India, and he says when he lands in the Apollo Bandar, a vast calm embraced him. He was an agnostic, but by the time he was completing his course in Cambridge University, his father had already started sending him news items about the atrocities which the British were committing against the Indians. So the father's pretensions to be an Englishman, a brown sahib, was also violently ruptured. So the messages were ambiguous. On the one hand, to be a brown sahib and to join the coveted Indian Civil Service, which was a parent of what is called the IAS now. So Sri Aurobindo decided that he would not have anything to do with the British Raj. He would not be part of the colonial system because, if you read Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, there is a central character who says that, referring to the Africans, and he says, exterminate the brutes. So we are the brutes. We are the colonized subject people. We need to be civilized. Britannica rules the waves. And there is a civilizing burden of the white upon them to civilize the heathen. Sri Aurobindo said that this is absolutely barbaric. It is a travesty that a set of people who already have the idea of civilization and culture, and the idea of civilization and culture that he learned in England was not meant only for the Englishman. It was paradoxical, it was meant for the whole world. And yet, because of the mercantile capitalism and colonialism and the exploitation of the resources, you cannot exploit unless you subjugate the people. The British did it through the British colonialism. And another thing that they did, which Alexander and other invaders who came to India did not do, they colonized the mind. They colonized the mind, and we are still paying the price. Because there was a debate between Orientalism and Anglicism. Anglicism, spearheaded by Macaulay, Anglicism won. Orientalism believed in teaching the languages like Urdu and Persian and Indian languages. They lost out, and English won the primacy of English language. I'm not saying that English is to be really thrown out the window, to be debugged. I'm saying that English plays a very important role. It is a window to the world. And K.R. Srinivasa Iyengar had said that English is a window to the English is a gift of Goddess Saraswati to us. So how do you master the language? How do you not allow it to be allowed to subjugate us, to colonize us, and to create this secondary status? So that is the essential thing that you find about Sri Aurobindo. So I think it's important. Another thing that he said is that we don't belong to the dawns of the past. We belong to the high noons of the future. So one word that my dear students and all of you would believe, and I'm so happy to be in the city, beautiful. And my stint in the university here, the first phase itself, has been so exhilarating. I find wonderful bunch of students who are receptive. They're not pretentious, they're not conceited. And wonderful infrastructure. You think of the Rose Garden, you think of the Rock Garden, and you think the bird, exhibition and bird park. And I think it's wonderful. I think we are in heaven itself. And I am so happy and I am delighted that I could really give, and so much under the auspices of Sri Aurobindo. I told the students, and I want to repeat here, it's not that the world wisdom is on one side and Sri Aurobindo is on the other side. I'm not here to talk about Sri Aurobindo as a devotee, as a disciple, although that might also exist along with it. But primarily in the school and colleges, we must have a scholarly and intellectual approach. Because no less a person than Aldous Huxley, the author of Perennial Philosophy, had said, talking about Sri Aurobindo, he had nominated Sri Aurobindo, Aldous Huxley, the author of 1984, the dystopian novel that he wrote. And in 1984 it came true, because the whole idea of Big Brother watching you, this surveillance system, which is really a fact of life now, and we rebel against it. The whole business of surveillance of the state, of the internet, and the cyber world itself, which is completely controlling us. And George Orwell, and you find Aldous Huxley had also written about it. Orwell had written about it. But Aldous Huxley had nominated Sri Aurobindo for the Nobel Prize for Life Divine, not for philosophy. Sri Aurobindo said he wrote philosophy by accident. Temperamentally, he was a poet. But so if you read philosophy, you read Life Divine, you don't think that you're reading Kant, you're reading Hegel, dry and sterile philosophy, metaphysics of the world. You feel that you are in the presence of poetry, deep poetry, incantatory words and mantric words also. So such is the person, and he was one of the greatest intellectuals of the age. And it is a travesty, it is such a crime that we do not teach Sri Aurobindo in the academic world. My friends, I was educated in the ashram. And then I also was present in 1968 when there was a birth of the City of Dawn. And then, of course, subsequently, I was so fortunate, I was invited to be a member of the governing board of Auroville Foundation. I've been to Stanford, I've been to Columbia, I've been to Texas, I've been to Yale, Oxford, Cambridge, and France. And I have seen, I've been exposed to the best that the West can give. But I can tell you that we have not discovered the kernels of our own truth, our own insights, our own wisdom. Sri Aurobindo is going to tell us in a universal, in a Catholic, in an eclectic manner. He is not exclusive. And he said famously that I am not here to gather disciples. He never left Pondicherry. Some people were concerned about his safety. They said, you must go to Algeria. And he put his feet on the table and he said, I'm not budging from here. And Pondicherry at that time was crawling with spies, British spies. And close by was Cuddalore. At any time, there was a possibility of being spirited away by the British police. But he did not move. Because for him, Pondicherry was the cave of tapasya. Some people feel, oh, she's come to talk about Sri Aurobindo. He will talk about the virtue of inner peace. We need meditation. We need peace. We have broken families. And we have broken relationship. And I am a burnt out case. I'm in the IT sector. By 29, I'm burnt out because I have had multiple relationships. I know how to fall in love, but nobody teaches us how to fall out of love, for example. So this is the tragedy of our own time, that obsession with money and power and status, which is the bane of the 20th century capitalistic civilization. Sri Aurobindo is meant for us. And when we say that it is for inner peace, my friends, we are not here to take care of the angst of the middle-aged. We are not here to talk about the marital discords. We are here to really encourage us to live a creative life itself, where those problems that modern civilization is encountering will not be visited. We don't have to make a beeline to the counseling center, because we'll find the answers yourself. So Mother and Sri Aurobindo are not God-man. They are spiritual personalities. They are great exemplars. Through their power of example, they are telling us how to live. I must tell you about the correspondence that Sri Aurobindo had with Subhash Chandra Bose. And Subhash Chandra Bose was in Mandalay jail. And through an intermediary called Dilip Kumar Roy, Subhash wrote to Sri Aurobindo saying, I'm not interested in the Pondicherry brand of ashram and Sabarmati brand of ashram of Gandhiji. I'm interested in action. There has to be a double dose, double serum of action. I want the liberation. I don't want this kind of a hermitage in Pondicherry or in Sabarmati. And Sri Aurobindo heard this and he wrote to Dilip Kumar and communicated this to Subhash. He said, all this talk about action is fine. But he said very pointedly, significantly, action to what end? So my friends, there's no dichotomy, there's no complete about contemplation and action. Sri Aurobindo says that worthy, effective action will take place if it is preceded by deep contemplation and meditation. So some of these kind of binaries which have been created by the European and the Western Enlightenment. Men versus women. Are you on the side of men or are you on the side of women? Are you on the side of patriarchy or are you on the side of feminism? Are you on the side of development or are you on the side of ecology? Are you on the side of the West or are you inside of India? Or are you on the side of developed North or are you on the side of the backward South, Southern Hemisphere itself? So this is what the European Enlightenment, unknown to us, unwittingly has created in the metropolitan West. And we in India, forget about the colonization that our forefathers had. There is a kind of a new colonization which is commodifying the female body itself through the powerful multinational corporate industry. And we are subjugated to a life of a commodified body itself, unknown to us. So this conspiracy of the cosmetic industry, etc., are telling us and shaping our own idea of femininity and masculinity. This masculinity which is there is very toxic. How to free ourselves from all those kinds of impositions which are being given to us, that I think is one of the challenges that we face today. So when we are talking about integral education, we're not talking about some Gurukul ashram which is divorced from life itself, so that children, are not contaminated with the problems of the world. We are thinking of an integral education center, which is kind of a pulsating laboratory, where new experiments are taking place, whereby when the products go out into the world, they go recharged itself. The kinds of things which happen in the case of Dronacharya and the case of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. They did not go to an archery school, but Dronacharya took, and I am departing from the prepared text here, took them to the forest and said, my boys, my disciples, what do you see? So somebody said, I see the tree, the trunk of a tree. Then he said, not quite. Another person said, I see there is a bird. And then everybody kept quiet, and Arjuna said, I see the eye of a bird. And because that represents power of concentration. Of all the weapons which the Pandavas were using and the Kauravas, the most potent we know in our own kind of a spiritual universe is also the archery, the arrow. And with the help of that arrow, he shot and won the hand of Panchali, Draupadi. Of course, it was a patriarchal pride when they said, we have brought something with us. And Yudhishthir said, look at the wise man Yudhishthir, we have brought something. So there is something commentary about the way women are being treated. But it was not we, it was Arjuna. And she had to give herself to all the five, Pandavas, one after the other. That was the victimhood of. So this is it's a wonderful commentary on the way women's emancipation is being talked about. So I think our own integral school centers should really deal with this kind of issues. It is not to put all the things of the world on one side and in an ideal and uncontaminated and unaffected manner talk about the learning itself. If learning is not really dealing with the issues of life, that learning is not very meaningful. Now the second stage I'm going to tell you, I have just given you the kind of a context and the backdrop, which will ensure the kind of a great relevance, because in Punjab University I was telling them, problem of self-determination, the question of cosmopolitanism, the question of literature, and the question of globalization and cultural memory. So, Gitika ji, I think your students would be so happy if ever to come and teach here. We think that, scholars should only address, for example, the university audience. I think it should be possible for a professor like me to come and talk to all the young people who are really wrestling with the issues of life itself as we go. Because you are sending them into the corporate world, sending them into the world out there. So if they are not equipped with this kind of a life skills, I'm afraid they will not be able to do. I want the students and products of this school to go out and hold their own and not be swamped and carried away by the winds of change which are being witnessed outside. Let me now quickly come back to Sri Aurobindo's. He is known as a poet, a prophet, an exponent of a new evolution, new concept theory of evolution, the coming of the Superman, as it were, and the 5 dreams that he gave on the Independence Day. The first was the freedom of the country, India, because he said freedom of India is, unity of India is necessary because India has a spiritual gift to give to the mankind and to humanity. And he said India is divided, that was against his wishes. And he said India must be united again, and I believe through federation and confederation, because all the nations which were part of undivided India are now in a hopeless kind of a crisis. They're all failed states. Pakistan is a failed state, Afghanistan is a failed state, and then Burma is a failed state, Sri Lanka is a failed state, and Maldives most recently is a failed state, you see. So these states which were once part of the undivided India, they have all become failed states. So I believe, not perhaps in my generation, in your generation, there will be a federation and confederation, which will bring all these units together. Because united we stand and divided we fall. Then the second, what he said was the rise of Asia. And I will tell you how education comes in the entire enterprise. Rise of Asia. Today we do not hear of rise of Asia. We hear of unity of Asia in a truncated manner, my friends. ASEAN, ASEAN. Then we have SAARC, for example, South Asia Regional Association, Cooperation. But we do not have a Pan-Asian unity. There's a tremendous amount of conflict in the Asia-Pacific region, completely with the Southeast Asia. There was a Vietnam War. There is an ongoing war in between Philippines and China, and between China and Japan, and Australia, New Zealand on the one side with America, and then of course India there itself. So South China Sea has become a trouble spot. Indian Ocean has become a trouble spot. And we are told that India is being surrounded by a host of Chinese, Chinese centers of power. Chinese centers of power. So Asia is not really witnessing a kind of a unity that Sri Aurobindo had talked about. And the third, he said, was the world union, the unity of mankind. And then he talks about the supramentalization and the coming of a new species. Look at the world vision that he had, not just a liberator of Bengal and India, but from being a political revolutionary, he is really developing a world vision. Here, Yuga Drashta is no longer an Indian thinker. He's become a global thinker. We really find very few people who are global thinkers. The thinkers of America, Lincoln and JFK, etc., and any other thinkers, contemporary thinkers, but you hardly find anybody who is a world thinker, who is thinking of the welfare and well-being of the entire mankind, entire humanity. And so now we have to really come to the whole business of education and the integral education that he talks about. The first is the notion of, there are two concepts, my friends, my young friends particularly, if you can really, there's a magic key to understanding Sri Aurobindo. The first is an important line from the Life Divine in the chapter called Human Aspiration. And I'm going to give you the secret, like the UPSC exam. You just give your formula. And he says, all problems of existence are essentially problems of harmony. God, light, freedom, immortality. First, harmony. How do you have harmony within yourself? We are a divided self. In the community, in the family, in the province, in the world, and beyond the world, in the cosmic world itself. Second is that how to integrate, how to connect. I think there are layers of interconnectivity. If only we are open through critical intelligence and the power of imagination, which are very crucial in the path of learning and which are stamped out because of the domination of the Macaulay's approach of children and in a passive manner. I'm going to read out a passage of the early passage of Sri Aurobindo called the child in the patriarchal idea. Then I'll talk about the importance of diversity. Then I will show in an interconnected manner how there is a holistic vision that binds all the writings of Sri Aurobindo, of which education is a very crucial thing, because for mother, education was so important in the ashram. It was very vital to Auroville, Because when Aurobindo was started, and mothers and people came to mother and said, "Mother, what will be the name of the school?" So mother said provocatively, and so it has not really come to pass. And she said, "It will be a last school." And mother said, "Last school, and after that?" Mother said, incredibly in a utopian manner, she said, "After that there will be no school." Because schooling will be the part of upbringing in the community itself. And we do not have communities. We have kibbutz in Israel, and we don't have so many communities. I do believe that it is useful to have one set of parents, biologically. But spiritually, multiple parents is very good for education. Because biologically, if you have one set of parents, and the parents have this proprietorial attitude, appropriating approach, my children, my son, IIT, IAS, my daughter, fashion technology, this. So proprietorially approach. And Sri Aurobindo says, children don't belong to you. Children are individual souls who have come. I'll just read it out. And then how do you move from there itself? It's very good. And then Sri Aurobindo says, and mother says, no school. No school. Schooling will be the part of growing up in the community itself. They are radical ideas. And to live in Auroville, you can live as men and women. But we should not live under the passion, under the influence of passion and egoism and sexuality. She's all the time making it very, very clear. The notion of a good life that she had in mind. And not under the drudgery of an institution called marriage, which perhaps has outlived its own utility. But to live in a situation without marriage requires a great deal of courage and great deal of responsibility also, and self-control. So she is cautioning us to do this kind of a thing. Allow me to read a passage, because before you talk about the notion of education, at the heart of education is the concept of the child. What is your worldview about the child? Let me read out. And this is from a book, and not from a book of education by Sri Aurobindo and the mother. There are many books of this kind which exist, but from an unlikely book called War and Self-Determination. And I think by the time I end, all my dear students out here there will be ecstatic, because you will say, Sri Aurobindo is for me. Sri Aurobindo speaks to me, and Sri Aurobindo is not archaic. Sri Aurobindo is not outdated. He's not a philosopher who is talking about some, Vedic and Upanishadic age. He's talking to the modern mind itself. So I want to tell you, and you will see, and you will say, how wonderful, how great, how insightful he is. And first, the notion of diversity. Diversity is so important. Diversity is not there in the colonial system of education, where children, the teacher stands with gospel as giving gospel truth, and the children are supposed to learn by heart. And it's the memory power that is tested, and you hate this system. Even as you reproduce in the exam and pass, and said, it is a great injustice to my creativity, to my originality, to my spontaneity, to my joy of learning. The spontaneity, creative, and joy of learning are completely annihilated in the modern system of education. Diversity in education, in life, and upbringing is completely denied. Listen to what Sri Aurobindo says about diversity. But freedom is as necessary to life as law. And diversity is as necessary as unity, as our true completeness. Existence is one only in its essence and reality. In its play, it is necessarily multiform. Diversity, which is the key. I'm just introducing a key idea. Integration, harmony, diversity, in order to understand what Sri Aurobindo stands for. And you will notice in an incredible manner that it is a parallel in the field of education. So Deepikaji, is very important before bringing all these children here to tell them that what exactly is the quintessential aspect of education, and how is it not really revivalistic. It is not retrogressive, but it is futuristic. It is modern. It embraces the best of the West and the best of the East. Romain Rolland said that Sri Aurobindo is the greatest synthesis between East and the West. Let me now turn my attention to the concept of the child in the book called War and Self-Determination. We want determination for ourselves. We are the flower children of the 60s. And my father is the president of a university in America. My father is he's the head of a corporate in America. I want to go to the different places. And maybe I will go to Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, to Kathmandu, like Zinath Aman, and discover, my own self, my own identity itself. Am I a renegade? Am I a dissenter? So to be a dissenter, maybe it's a good thing because I am trying to discover myself. I think discovery of oneself is so essential to youth, and it's so important to discover yourself. But we are not told how to discover ourselves, not through militancy, not through rebellion of an irresponsible kind. Sri Aurobindo is telling us how to discover yourself. But before that, we must know what he has to say about the concept of the child. Are you all with me? Is it making sense? Okay. It's not a habitual kind of a talk that you are used to. So I'm breaking this kind of academic protocol out here. I'm bringing in several ideas from the Neoplatonism of Greece, and ideas from Socrates, and ideas from India, and then Sri Aurobindo and the mother's progressive ideals about the world and about education. And at the heart of it is the importance of diversity and the central play of the notion of the child. Listen to this. The child was, in the ancient patriarchal idea, the life property of the father. He was his creation, his production, his own reproduction in himself, the father, rather than God or the universal life in place of God, stood as the author of the child's being, and the creation has every right over the creation, the father in the patriarchal idea. And then he goes on to say, to hammer the child to the shape that you desire. And he says it's a barbaric kind of an approach to childbearing, to child. The child as a product of a certain biological act, and yet the attitude of appropriation, the attitude of possession, and the attitude of treating the child in such a savage and barbaric manner according to the whims and fancies of the world. And he goes on to say, we have moved from this kind of a outdated, obsolete, and barbaric approach to the discovery of the idea that child is a soul meant to grow. So we forget everything else, Deepika ji. Among all the teachers and the students, we just realize that the child is a soul meant to grow. If the parents, in the overzealous manner in which they are trying to determine the destiny of the children, if they remember that the child is a destiny, as a soul meant to grow, and according to the lines of the Bhagavad Gita and the Indian tradition itself, through the Swabhava and Swadharma. So I've just read out two passages to tell you that these two are the cornerstones of the system of education that Sri Aurobindo and the mother believe in. Now, Sri Aurobindo, of course, was a writer, and he's written so much in the Arya, the journals, Philosophical Quarterly, and later on they were brought out in the form of Synthesis of Yoga, an essay on the Gita, and Secret of the Veda, and social and political thought like the human cycle, the ideal of humanity, war and self-determination, the life divine, and the magnum opus Savitri also. And not to mention the last sonnets and the poetry like Baji Prabhu and the last sonnets, so beautiful that he has left behind. And so many fragments because he didn't have time, because spending entire nights writing to the disciples about the problems that they encountered. At one stage, Dilip Kumar Roy said, Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, who is very well known on the Teachers' Day, the former president, he said he was a professor in Cambridge University, and he was editing a volume of essays on Indian philosophy. So Dilip Kumar Roy turned to Sri Aurobindo and said, Dr. Radhakrishnan says he wants to make you famous in the West. So Sri Aurobindo said, half humorously, I don't need to be made famous anywhere. My time is devoted to my own disciples and my followers. So he was writing answers. He was never interested in taking a jet and going to the West and becoming a guru. He just remained there. Look at the selflessness, look at the modesty, look at the deep humility that Sri Aurobindo and the mother have had. So I've given you the key ideas.